Part 84. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 833. I swear, when I return to the God King Palace, I will strangle you to death and make you unable to get out of bed for half a year. She was already mad. Oh, that figure and face must be ranked first, so it is possible that I don't want to get out of bed for half a year. Zhang Zizai found that he was still a bit mean, so his poor old waist was blamed for his mouth again. When he pulled it apart, he saw that Xuanhuan had pinched it purple. In fact, when you were not the daughter of the God King, you were quite cute. While continuing to search, Zhang Zizai looked at the woman hanging on his waist and couldn't help but sigh. Really, she was also thinking about this question. She knew that her temperament had really changed a lot in her recent encounters. Ask you a question, Zhang Zizai said. What about you? I'm listening. When you return to the God King Palace and everyone treats you respectfully, can you still remember how you returned to yourself in the God King battlefield? Can you still be the same as now? Zhang Zizai was a little curious. He was also exploring the human form. If I become a god, I will definitely be like this. I won't change. I have reflected a lot recently. The things I couldn't let go of before have been let go by the hateful blood god Camp Xuanhuan said. What if I don't become a god? Zhang Zizai asked. Then, I don't know. I'm scared. She hesitated for a moment, looking a little flustered. You are under too much pressure. Relax a little. You can always succeed. It's just a matter of time. You can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. The more confused your mind is, the further you are from success. Why do you teach me? It's like you have become a god, she pouted. No, do you know why I came here with you? Xuanhuan was confused for a moment. She didn't seem to understand now. I really want to see with my own eyes how a person can become a god, so what I want to see is a successful case, not a failed case. You must let go of your pressure. I hope you succeed. Xuanhuan looked at him blankly, and suddenly tears were about to flow down. She found that this was a soulmate, and this was the person who understood her. She hugged Zhang Zizai tightly and said, "You are so nice. I was really sick in the past, so I sneered at you. There is no doubt about this. I am indeed excellent and handsome," Zhang Zizai said. Xuanhuan chuckled. She found that this person's shamelessness was sometimes quite interesting. Did you notice that you laughed many times when we were alone together? Did you feel that the pressure dissipated and you felt much more relaxed? Zhang Zizai asked. Really, Xuanhuan did find that when she talked to Zhang Zizai, she would not feel the heavy pressure from the God King Palace and her father. It's all my credit. You think I'm teasing you, but in fact I'm letting you relax invisibly, Zhang Zizai said proudly. Wow, you are really smart. You are so thoughtful. Compared with you, King Chi seems like a clumsy fool. Xuanhuan looked at him with some affection. Haha, actually these are my ways to pick up girls. Do you feel a little excited now? Zhang Zizai laughed. Originally, there was a little bit, but after this guy said it so bluntly, there was no excitement at all. In fact, Zhang Zizai said so much, but in the end, he only had one thing in mind. He really regarded Xuanhuan as a friend now, and then, he sincerely hoped that Xuanhuan could succeed in becoming a god. He instilled a lot of things in Xuanhuan. If she could succeed, it would undoubtedly prove that his ideas were correct, and then it would be much easier for him to succeed in the future. He suddenly found that the woman in his arms gently put her head on his chest, as if listening to the sound of his heartbeat. It's over. I won't go too far and make her fall in love with me immediately. Just when she was about to think this, Xuanhuan raised her head, looked at him suspiciously, and said, "How can your source be so overbearing? I am the 7th level source, but I am suppressed by your power. You actually secretly eavesdropped on my source," Zhang Zizai said contemptuously, thinking that she was obsessed with her heartbeat. Just listen casually, answer my questions. She raised her voice a little. Suddenly, Zhang Zizai stretched out his hand and pressed her mouth. The heavy feeling of the slap on her face made Suyuexi feel a little strange. Her heartbeat was a little faster. She didn't know what this guy wanted to do. Hush. Zhang Zizai put his finger in front of his mouth to make her quiet down. He also did not move. He gently let her go and let her look forward. When she looked back, she suddenly saw a huge cave in front of her. In the cave, there was a crystal white light. The white light was like a gem, very soft, but a closer look revealed that it was not a gem that emitted the white light, but a huge snow-white silkworm pupa. The snow-white silkworm pupa filled the entire cave, and its body was constantly vibrating. There were movements at both ends of the head and tail. At the head, there was a huge mouth. At this time, many soul-eating ants came here and spit out gray air into its mouth. The gray air was probably a soul. You could even hear the screams of the soul, which was eventually swallowed by the silkworm pupa. Then at the tail, there was also a huge mouth. At this time, young soul-eating ants crawled out of it and soon grew to adult size. The two looked at each other and noticed the tension in each other's eyes. This is the king of the soul-eating ants. It is the core of the soul-eating ant population, the creator of the entire soul-eating ant ocean, the absolute divine beast, the embodiment of the will of the soul-eating ants, and it is the super overlord of this green demon realm. This is the soul-eating ant queen. It gives birth to countless soul-eating ants, which bring it soul food, and these foods can allow it to regenerate soul-eating ants, and so on and so forth, creating such a magnificent soul-eating ant army in this green demon realm. I didn't expect it to hide in such a place. Let's go. Seeing the soul-eating ant queen, Zhang Zia whispered a word in her ear. Suyuexi was silent and nodded quickly. The Qingfeng dragon bird also shrank up, and its wings were trembling. At this moment, Suyuexi hid under Zhang Zizai's arm and looked back. She suddenly asked Zhang Zizai to stop, and her expression was a little excited. What? Zhang Zizai secretly wondered why this guy was not afraid of death. Now he had to leave quickly. Who knew if this divine beast would penetrate the demon lord cauldron and find him? Look, there is a door next to it, the same as the one on the map. Suyuexi was excited. Zhang Zizai looked back and saw a black door on the mountain wall next to the soul-eating ant queen. The door had a long history and was rusty. It was hard to find without careful observation and would soon be completely buried by dust. And the map they carried also showed such a door. No doubt. The door to the god-killing ruins is next to the soul-eating ant queen. This is a big joke, this is a terrible test. Who asked you to find the god-killing ruins? Zhang Zizai stared at her and asked. My father. Your father is so cruel, he is going to make you die. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 834. Seeing Suyuexi's eager look for the god of death ruins, Zhang Zizai quickly grabbed her by the back of her neck, pressed her to his side, and said, Don't be impulsive. This kind of thing can only be solved by wits. If you act rashly, you will pay the price for your impulsiveness and stupidity. Then how do you solve it by wits? Taiwan Novel Network. Rightward arrow. If the solution is so easy to think of, can the god of death ruins be preserved until now? Zhang Zizai rolled his eyes and said. He, let me go. They did not leave for the time being, hiding in the corner and continued to watching the soul-eating ant queen eating and giving birth. So disgusting, Suyuexi said. Eating and reproducing, what's disgusting? You are not disgusting, Zhang Zizai said. I haven't eaten for a long time. Then you will miss a lot of delicious food. Whatever, not interested. The two wanted to think of a possible way to achieve it by watching and thinking more. At this moment, the soul-eating ant queen suddenly changed. It must be that the souls brought by the soul-eating ants had been eaten up, so it stopped eating and also stopped producing. After stopping, Its body changed and was shrinking rapidly. In fact, the skin color of the snow-white silkworm pupa was very similar to that of a woman, also snow-white and smooth. In Zhang Ziyi's comments, the soul-eating ant queen gradually shrank. When it shrank to the same size as a human, a miracle appeared. Its body miraculously grew, arms and slender straight thighs, a head appeared, and the facial features gradually emerged, and even a head of snow-white hair grew. A charming woman with white skin, no clothes, a surging figure, and a devilish figure appeared in front of the two. This woman's face and figure are very top-notch. Even if Xuanhuan is here, she can be called a peerless beauty, especially the resentful and lonely expression on her face, plus there is no cover on her body, which can be called the best. If Zhang Ziyi didn't know that she was transformed from the soul-eating ant queen, he would probably be thirsty. Knowing the truth will only make you shudder. What are you looking at? Don't look. Xuanhuan blushed a little and stretched out her hand to block Zhang Ziyi's eyes. Why is it so strange? Zhang Ziyi didn't dare to look at it anymore. He thought the soul-eating ant queen was very scary, especially after she became a woman. If he stared at her again, he would probably be discovered. After becoming a woman, the soul-eating ant queen kept pacing back and forth, sighing in front of the god-killing ruins, looking lonely. Will she leave? Xuanhuan asked expectantly. Soon after she finished speaking, it seemed that the soul-eating ants brought food again. The woman's body suddenly swelled again and turned into a huge silkworm pupa, and then continued to eat and give birth, completely cutting off Xuanhuan's thoughts. Let's go out first and come back when we think of a way. It's too dangerous to stay here blindly, Zhang Ziyi decided. Okay, I'll listen to you. For Xuanhuan, at least the place has been found, so she is not confused. The two of them quietly withdrew from this abyss world and left the nest. Zhang Ziyi roughly remembered the direction and location to ensure that he could find this place next time. On the way back, Xuanhuan nestled in his arms, still looking down to think of a way. Hey, you take advantage of me, and you will pay me back sooner or later, Zhang Ziyi said. Don't be so naive, everyone knows that you are secretly happy in your heart, Xuanhuan said contemptuously. How is this possible? I'm so good that I'm used to girls' admiration. Shameless. After leaving the abyss and finally breathing the air outside, Xuanhuan couldn't wait to leave the range of the Demon Lord Cauldron. Do you still miss my embrace? Zhang Ziyi said. Shameless. No matter what Zhang Ziyi said, she would always respond with shamelessness. Haha. The two smiled and returned together according to the God Guidance Ring to find Ning Mufeng and Yun Ziao. They were quite obedient. Seeing that the location of the God Guidance Ring was still in the same place, they should not have wandered around. Zhang Ziyi and the other two approached with smiles on their faces and saw them. However, their smiles formed a sharp contrast with the tension and anxiety on the faces of the other three. As soon as they saw the two smiling, they knew that their trip must have been very smooth, and they did not suffer in it as some people cursed. What's wrong with you? After returning, Xuanhuan put away her smile and asked the three of them. 11 the remaining people from the Blood God camp just passed by here. They have several people in the 9th level of the initial God realm. They are a big threat to us. Fortunately, they were not discovered, Yun Ziao said hurriedly. Seeing them return, she finally felt relieved. Still wandering around, Xuanhuan's face was cold and stern. She knew that if she hadn't come back, Yun Ziao would still be in great danger if she met them. Fortunately, she came back in time. It's okay, I hope you come back safely. Yun Ziao walked up and held her hand. Sister Yuexi, is there a nest of his soul-eating ants? Yan Qingqi asked in a deep voice. He still felt that everything about Zhang Ziyi was fabricated. Xuanhuan glanced at him and said, of course it exists, and we also saw the soul-eating ant queen, a very scary beast. Her certainty embarrassed Yan Qingqi a little. He was a little unbelievable and said, It's impossible. How could I guess wrong? He believed that Zhang Zizai had a relationship with the blood god camp, so he could escape the pursuit of the ancient gods. However, once the nest of the soul-eating ant exists, his method will not be half as attractive. I think we still can't relax. Maybe they already know the existence of the soul-eating ant, and the ancient god is not dead at all. This will not affect his continued plot against you, Yan Qingqi said. Brother Yan, don't the defeated shut up? Do you want to be beaten again? Zhang Zizai was already a little annoyed with this guy. You don't say anything, you are dumb. Su Yuexi glared at him. She really couldn't tolerate Yan Qingqi. He used to be well educated and well mannered, but not like this at all. Now he is completely confused and like a fool. Yes, you don't care about Lian Xia or meeting the soul-eating ant queen, but you target Zhang Zizai. What are you thinking? Lian Yunziao, who has such a good temper, was a little unhappy. Xia, hurry up, how did you escape? I didn't escape. The soul-eating ant queen didn't find us, but we made a big discovery. Su Yuexi was too lazy to care about Yan Qingqi anymore. You are? Yes, I saw the gate of the god of death ruins, right next to the soul-eating ant queen, Su Yuexi said. Ah. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 835. The three of them were slightly surprised when they heard the news. The good news is that we finally found it, but the bad news is that there is a soul-eating ant queen and countless soul-eating ants, so we can't get close at all, Su Yuexi said. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Yeah, it's so troublesome. Yunziao also frowned. So we came back to think of a solution together, Su Yuexi said. While they were talking, Zhang Zizai was thinking. As soon as Su Yuexi finished, he said, there is a way now, you can try it. He also wanted to enter the God of Killing Ruins, which did not conflict with Su Yuexi's goal. The place introduced by the God King must have incredible treasures. What method? Su Yuexi asked expectantly. Zhang Zizai said, aren't the people from the Blood God camp still nearby? I'll go find them and lead them over to alert the soul-devouring ants, letting them chase them. As long as they don't fall in directly, they should be able to lead out a lot of soul-devouring ants, even the soul-devouring ant queen. We'll look for opportunities nearby. The four of them were silent and thinking. Using spared lives as bait? It's really the idea of bloody people, cruel and ruthless, Yan Qingqi said lightly. Yes, when others want to chop off your head, they are also cruel and ruthless. If you are so innocent, you might as well go back to the God King Palace. Why do you need to sneer and expose your childishness here? Zhang Zizai laughed. Yan Qingqi had no way to refute his reasoning. He could only swallow it for a while, and the bloodshot in his eyes was very obvious. Say less. Ning Mufeng patted his shoulder. In fact, even he felt that Yan Qingqi had lost his sense of propriety and always spoke without intelligence because of jealousy. Are you sure you can do it? Su Yuexi asked. There is no other way for the time being, and the possibility of success is not high, but at least we can try to find a way. Maybe there is a glimmer of hope. By the way, we can take this opportunity to get rid of the people from the Blood God camp. If we go down again, we don't have to worry too much about the safety of the three of them, Zhang Zizai said. Su Yuexi agreed deeply. She stared at Yan Qingqi. Did you hear that? He is thinking about your safety, so as not to really lose his life. You are still sarcastic, don't you think you are childish? Yan Qingqi lowered his head, clenched his fists, and felt ashamed. Okay, say less to him, so that he won't cry on the spot. Zhang Zizai's position in the team has completely changed. Even Yun Ziao can see that after entering the soul-eating ant nest, even Su Yuexi has listened to his arrangements. Find the people from the blood god camp first. I'll find them, I'll lead them, Qingfeng Longke can help me. Zhang Zizai took the initiative to take on the matter. Okay. He is a very reassuring person in terms of ability. Where did they go just now? Zhang Zizai asked Yun Ziao. That way. Yun Ziao pointed him in a direction. I'll go find someone first, Yuexi, take them to a safe place where they can see the movement of the abyss and hide. Okay. Zhang Zizai was resolute in his work. After making arrangements, he went directly to chase the people from the blood god camp, leaving the 4 of them behind. 11 Did something happen down there? Why do you think of a wife? In order not to irritate Yan Qingqi, Yun Ziao could only whisper in her ear. No way, you're blind. Wow, your face is blushing. I'll tickle you again. The 2 of them played around in front for a while, and when they looked back and saw that Ning Mufeng and Yan Qingqi had indifferent expressions, they had to become serious. Yan Qingqi has a problem with his brain. Tell your Ning Mufeng not to get close to him all the time, so as not to let him make him stupid, Su Yuexi warned. I know, if you get in touch with your Zhang Zizai more, you will become smarter, Yun Ziao chuckled. When they found a hidden place outside the abyss, Zhang Zizai finally found the group of people through the clues along the way. There were more than a dozen people in total, and they probably didn't know that their boss was dead. Zhang Zizai calculated the direction of the nest and came from the direction of the nest, pretending to meet them by accident. Go, Zhang Zizai pretended that other people were around him and shouted hurriedly. Catch up with him. When the people in the blood god camp saw that the person who was chased by the boss was not dead, they were stunned. They chased him without thinking. After all, they all knew that Zhang Zizai had a god-level totem weapon on him. Moreover, they were sure that the others must be near Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai had cultivated to the 5th level of the initial god realm and could defeat Yan Qingqi, but there were many people in the 9th level of the initial god realm among this group of people. They had the speed to catch up with Zhang Zizai, so he still needed the help of Qingfeng Longke, but he did not let Qingfeng Longke unfold all his speed. In this way, he led the group of people from the blood god camp and gradually approached the nest. After getting close, he used the same trick again and rushed into the nest directly in their sight. He had the demon lord cauldron, so he plunged directly into the sea of soul-eating ants and opened the demon lord cauldron to protect himself. Such a huge movement directly awakened many soul-eating ants, who opened their blood-red eyes and looked around angrily. The next moment, the people from the blood god camp rushed in and encountered the army of soul-eating ants below face to face. When countless soul-eating ants awakened because they sensed the breath of the living soul, they saw these soul-eating ants through the blood-red light. Run away. The disaster was about to come. Fortunately, they still kept a certain distance and did not go deep inside like the ancient god. It was difficult to get out when they were surrounded. They had not come in yet, so they turned back and started to run for their lives. The angry army of soul-eating ants rushed out immediately, and millions of soul-eating ants turned into waves of the vast sea and rolled up. To be honest, this was much more than the soul-eating ants that Zhang Zizai encountered the first time. Several people in the blood god camp were directly scared and were swallowed up by the soul-eating ants if they ran a little slower. The remaining soul-eating ants were still chasing others. It was like the waves of the vast sea, rolling towards the distance. People in the blood god camp were swallowed up along the way. Only the last few people in the 9th level of the initial god realm were still fleeing desperately, and the others were drowned by the mountains of soul-eating ants. For the huge number of soul-eating ants, this amount of soul food was a bit pitiful. But for them who were hungry, it was enough to relieve some of their hunger. Zhang Zizai could feel that there were fewer and fewer soul-eating ants around him. He was being bumped around by the soul-eating ants like a ball. Now he hoped that the people from the blood god camp could escape farther away, so that he could take away more soul-eating ants. What if the soul-eating ant queen wanted to go out and see the fun? That would be a profit. Anyway, This time he was mainly trying to eliminate the threat and try his luck. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 836. Eliminating the threat was not to save Yan Qingqi. He had no intention of saving his grandson anymore. He wanted Yun Xiao and Ning Mufeng to be safer. In fact, Yun Xiao and the four of them could clearly see the scene not far away. They finally knew how the ancient god who was chasing Zhang Zizai died. Such a sea of soul-eating ants is truly terrifying. Have you ever gone to the deepest point in a place like this? Yun Xiao asked in disbelief. Yes, Suyuexi said. You are so courageous. You are not afraid of anything. I admire you so much. Yun Xiao admired you. Well, yes, it's all over. Suyuexi smiled awkwardly. She really didn't want to be so scared when she first went down. She felt safe just by holding Zhang Zizai. Such a shameful thing, she was no. You feel guilty. I knew it was a lie. It must be that bold guy who is protecting you. He must have taken advantage of you by being so close. Yun Xiao's eyes were ambiguous. She hit the truth immediately. Suyuexi was indeed guilty. Well, I'm so angry. She could only change the subject. In fact, her face is still slightly shy. Such Suyuexi had never appeared in the world of the three of them. Yun Xiao must have understood that it was that person who completely changed her. She almost didn't recognize him. However, Yan Qingqi didn't expect that the daughter of the superior Dushan king would be like this. It was a little hard for him to breathe, and his heart ached as if it was being torn apart. Because he found that he seemed to have no chance at all. The goddess in his heart had been defiled by a dirty person, at least mentally. Once the spirit was defiled, would the physical body be far behind? Zhang Zizai, you must die. I swear, you will never leave the God King's battlefield alive. He made a devil's oath in his heart. He never thought that Suyuexi would have such a shy expression of a girl at a certain time. This expression made his world collapse. In his mind, his goddess had been destroyed. This is a completely unforgivable sin. He saw Zhang Zizai, who was free in the sea of soul-eating ants. When he first saw him, he only thought that he was an uncivilized bumpkin. After 3 months, he was really impressed. Failed, Suyuexi sighed. She had already seen that before more soul-eating ants came out, those people in the blood god camp were swallowed up by the soul-eating ants one by one, and no one was left at the end. Some of them are flying upwards, but the soul-eating ants can also roll up and rush into the sky. Judging from this scene, we can see how lucky they were to escape last time. Fortunately, there were not so many soul-eating ants last time. Otherwise, they would be gone, and the soul-eating ants would be even more unreasonable than the blood god camp. At this time, those soul-eating ants have returned with their full load. The people in the blood god camp are very good in cultivation. Their souls are very layered and thick, which is enough for the soul-eating ant queen to produce a lot of soul-eating ants and expand their group. It is such a mechanical and terrifying way to survive. Zhang Zizi had no choice but to withdraw from it and join them. Sorry, I failed, Zhang Zizai said. It's already very good. We couldn't have thought of this method, and it also clarified the threat for us. Suyuexi smiled. Assuming you're sensible, I'm just going to pretend to be sorry. Once you are dissatisfied with your desires, I will condemn you morally, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. Why are you so unsatisfied? Can you use nice words next time? Suyuexi said depressedly. Tisk, tisk, here we go again. Yun Xiao looked at them with ambiguous eyes, as if she understood you. Next to him, Yan Qingqi lowered his head. He might not raise his head again, but Zhang Zizai noticed that his face looked a little gloomy. He pulled Suyuexi aside and said, Yan Qingqi is a narrow-minded person who can't let go of his pride. I think I have made him lose his heart and fall into hatred. I don't care, but you have to pay attention to it, so as not to worry about the critical moments sometimes, Let him ruin something big. Don't worry, I grew up with him. Even if he has any objections to you, he will definitely not harm me, Su Yuexi said firmly. That's good, Zhang Zizai smiled faintly. He had already reminded her, but in the end it was up to Su Yuexi to decide whether to accept it or not. If he did more, Su Yuexi might think that he was targeting Yan Qingqi. After all, Yan Qingqi does not have the strength to return to the God King's palace on his own. Now that the ruins of the killing god have been discovered, it is impossible to send him back on his own. Let's think about it again. What else can we do? Su Yuexi asked. It's hard to think about it, but you still have to think about it. Don't be in a hurry. The boat will straighten out when it reaches the bridge. Zhang Zizai was patient enough. The location they were in was a crack in a mountain wall. They were well hidden enough by placing some arrangements in this crack. Su Yuexi is actually good at totem formations. She can draw the totem formations to make this place completely hidden. Actually, the Totem Array Master and the Totem Talisman Master are somewhat similar, except that we draw totem patterns on the ground, which is more difficult. Sometimes we also need to arrange some materials. If you have the talent of a Totem Talisman Master, you can actually dabble in the Totem Array Master. Said Su Yuexi said. No one taught me, you taught me, Zhang Zizai asked. You can be my apprentice, Su Yuexi said. That won't work. I'm your sister's disciple. You two sisters can't rob me. You're overthinking again? Forget it, I won't teach you. There's no benefit at all. Can you sell my pretty face? Zhang Zizai asked. Okay, cut off your face, Su Yuexi said viciously. Cruel devil. In the end, she still gave Zhang Zizai some guidance and told him the principle of the simplest totem array, which is actually very similar to the Totem Talisman Master, and also has something in common with the Totem Spirit Master who forges weapons. Su Yuexi was quite serious when she was guiding him to practice, and Zhang Zizai was even more serious. He learned very quickly, so fast that Su Yuexi was shocked. I didn't expect you to be so smart. You can understand such a difficult problem at once. Nonsense, if you're not smart, can you get from the totem world to the daughter of the God King of Badu? Zhang Zizai rolled his eyes. Are you sure you want to seduce me? Who has a wife and children? Su Yuexi pouted. It's okay, I'm a scumbag, I'm used to having two girlfriends at the same time, or building a harem or something, so you must teach me the way of a totem formation master, so that you can compete for favor in the future. Get lost. This guy is like this. Su Yuexi wanted to kick him away. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 837. As time passed, while learning new things, Zhang Zizai was indeed thinking of ways. He occasionally went into the nest to try it out, but still did not dare to approach the soul-eating ant queen. What he didn't expect was that at this moment, a group of new beings appeared near the soul-eating ant's nest. This group of people attracted their attention immediately. Fortunately, they were hidden by the totem array, so they could see this group of people, but this group of people could not see them. Su Yuexi's totem array is still very high quality. This group of people were also wearing blood robes, but the quality and style of their blood robes seemed to be higher end, and the totem patterns on them were clearly at the level of totem magic weapons, and they must have certain protective capabilities. Compared with the group of people in the blood god camp, this group of people is obviously more noble and younger overall. Almost all of the people in the blood god camp are middle-aged, while this group of people are basically young people. Of course, in a place like God's domain, basically, people in their 60s and 70s look like young people, and some people even have good looks and look like young people under 100 years old. There were 8 people in total, all of them seemed to be handsome men and beautiful women. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. This group of people are all beings at the top level of the first god realm. Xuanhuan took one look at it and said, 7 of them are at the 9th level of the first god realm. From my judgment, they are over 50 years old and within 100 years old. Such the level can be regarded as some of the disciples of the third-rate sect or the fourth-rate sect. In our God King Palace, those who have not become gods by this age have long been eliminated. They are only teenagers and have already reached these realms. The talent is indeed not that great, but the God King battlefield does not look at the talent, only the current combat effectiveness. The leader is an ancient god. He is about the same age as them. He is much younger than the head of the blood god camp and is obviously more difficult to deal with, Xuanhuan analyzed. Zhang Zizai also saw it. The leader was a red-haired young man with strange eyes. He was wearing a red robe and was surrounded by a group of people. You can hear them here. Next to the young ancient god, stood 2 charming beauties. They were wearing revealing clothes and posing, all to attract the ancient god's attention. One of them said, "Brother Xuanhuan, didn't the master arrange for people from the blood god camp to help us? Why haven't you responded yet? Do they think it's great? They don't even pay attention to our blood god sect? They are just unqualified disciples expelled from our blood god sect. I think they must be expelled out of the sect out of resentment. This group of rubbish will definitely die if we report it to the headmaster after we return. They dare to let us go," another woman said. Blood god cult, Xuanhuan was a little confused. I've heard that it's a sect not far away. The leader is a divine king. Overall, he can barely be considered a third-rate section. Ning Mufeng, the young sect leader of the Yin sect, said. What are they doing here? Do they also know the location of the ruins of the god of death? Xuanhuan asked. When she just finished speaking, Xuanhuan below said, it doesn't matter, in fact, they are of no use. I originally planned to use them as bait. If they don't want to come, let them be considered smart. He looked into the abyss and said, it is actually difficult to tell whether the news about the ruins of the killing god is true or false, but you can always give it a try. We should be the only ones who have the news now, so we can seize the opportunity. According to reports, there is another one below. Soul-eating ant queen. Don't worry about the soul-eating ant queen. Senior brother Xuanhuan already has a way to deal with her. The beauty smiled. That's true, so I won't waste any time. Let's get started, Zhuangzhou, just like I did before. Apart from me, you are the fastest among everyone, so you will be the one to divert the soul-eating ants. Xuanhuan ordered. Yes, senior brother, Zhuangzhou will never give up if he works for senior brother. A thin man came out from the crowd, very excited. Very good. But don't say that. If there is any treasure in the ruins of the god of death, let's share it with everyone. If you complete the task, you will have a lot of credit and you will benefit from it. Thank you, senior brother. The thin man was already ready. At this point in the conversation, Zhang Zizai and Xuanhuan looked at each other. It seems that your father revealed it to them and found you a competitor to train you, Zhang Zizai asked suspiciously. Maybe, it doesn't matter, it could be a coincidence, but that's not important anymore. What's important is, how did they lure away the soul-eating ants? You'll know it just by looking at it. After all, this is the arrangement of the king of the gods. In fact, there is no point even knowing it. Having seen the cruelty of the blood god camp, Xuanhuan already knows her father's determination this time. If he fails or dies, he really will not regret it, because she is the king of the gods, and his daughter must succeed. During their observation, Xuanhuan made some moves. At this time, Xuanhuan took out a blood-colored spar from the space jade pendant. As soon as the spar appeared, countless miserable cries came from it, and the number was endless. With these blood soul crystals, we managed to collect 10,000 human souls. We have killed 10,000 people for this. If the ruins of the god of death do not exist, Our efforts will be in vain. The beauty named Chi-Chi was nervous. What are 10,000 human souls? They are all trash that can't become an ancient god. They still want to join our blood god section. Brother Swimming's is smart. He knows that the soul-eating ants like young souls, so he arranges a blood fight. The lies of the divine sect to recruit disciples ended up ruining the people they attracted. There was another beauty named Tangzikian. Yes, they are really idiots. Our blood god sect selects outstanding talents ourselves. When will we do such a boring assessment? Doesn't that expose the position of our blood god sect? I have to, senior brother. The method is truly superb. They continued to praise, which made Xuanhuan feel a little embarrassed. He said, "Don't be messy, I am not a murderer. Their death is valuable, and a valuable death is not a sin." He put the blood soul crystal in Zhuangzhou's hand and said, "Remember, release the souls as you walk. 10,000 souls will be released slowly, which is enough for all the soul-eating ants to chase them out. If you don't come back, you must operate it well and don't die yourself, otherwise you will be in trouble." "Senior brother, I will definitely complete the mission and live up to your trust in me," Zhuangzhou said excitedly. Hearing this, Suyuexi's eyes were already red. "My father once said that there are still demons in the world. They are not real demons, they may be humans. I didn't believe it before, but I believe it now. Using the recruitment of disciples as bait, catching tens of thousands of people and killing them all in one go, just to lure away the soul-eating ants, is so cruel." Zhang Zizai could only shake his head. He had done this before, and that was because the blood god camp had a grudge against them, which was completely different from that of Xuanhuan. Just imagine, those young people were full of expectations and wanted to be recognized by large sects, but in the process of pursuing their dreams, they died inexplicably. "I want to take revenge for those people." Suyuexi looked at Zhang Zizai longingly. "No problem, but don't be impatient. Think about it, when you become a god, or even a god king in the future, will you be better able to do what you want to do?" While they were talking, Zhuangzhou had already started to take action. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 838. Zhuangzhou took the blood soul crystal and took a deep breath. This unprecedentedly important task fell on his head, which was a huge test. But if it succeeded, he could brag about it for decades. He held the blood soul crystal in his hand, and at this time, Xuanhuan and a group of people had moved to the safe side. Xuanhuan had already signaled with his eyes, asking Zhuangzhou to start quickly. Okay. Zhuangzhou first took out a few stones from his hand. When the stones fell into the abyss, there was a sudden explosion, and a dazzling light burst out. The entire abyss was almost boiling. I don't know how many soul-eating ants were awakened and fell into a state of angry frenzy. Zhuangzhou shivered after causing such a commotion, but the courage to survive still allowed him to calm down and operate. He began to release the souls in the blood soul crystal. The souls of those young people who died unwillingly with resentment came out of them. The souls that were condensed and collected by the blood soul crystal after death were undoubtedly very attractive to the soul-eating ants, and the soul-eating ants were startled at once. The first time he released hundreds of souls, which began to float in the air and would soon die. In this instant, countless soul-eating ants formed an army and rushed out of the abyss. This time the scene was much more spectacular than the last time. Zhuangzhou turned around and fled in a hurry. The souls released were all drowned by the soul-eating ants in the first time, which made the soul-eating ants more excited. They felt the presence of Zhuangzhou and chased him directly. During the process of being chased, Zhuangzhou kept releasing new souls, and the temptation of so many souls was fatal to the soul-eating ants. They didn't know how to transmit the signal. Anyway, this time, there were many more soul-eating ants rushing out of the abyss than last time. As Xuanhuan kept fleeing and releasing souls, soul-eating ants kept rushing out, and the remaining soul-eating ants in their nests became fewer and fewer. Very good, this kid did a very good job. If this continues, it will definitely be able to lead so many soul-eating ants away for a while. The ancient god Xuemingzi was very satisfied with his performance. Xuanhuan should have released a lot of souls in the early stage, and the soul-eating ants should have seen that there were countless souls in his blood soul crystal, which was a huge temptation for the soul-eating ants. It is possible that with these souls, their soul-eating ant queen can produce more of the same kind. Therefore, in order to seduce this blood soul crystal, the soul-eating ants may have attacked with all their forces. Zhang Zizai also almost witnessed the process of countless soul-eating ants crawling out of it. Looking from a distance, the swampland of the Qingmo domain seemed to be completely covered by the sea of soul-eating ants. Now the soul-eating ants have not gone far, so they are not in a hurry to go in. This process must wait for at least an hour to be safe. At present, the soul-eating ants in the abyss nest should be empty, but the soul-eating ant queen is estimated to have not left. It's just that Xuemingzi is an ancient god. He is afraid of the endless army of soul-eating ants, but he should not be afraid of the soul-eating ant queen. Once those soul-eating ants have left for an hour, even if the soul-eating ant queen summons them back, it will take an hour. I hope Xuanhuan can hold on for that long. Chi was nervous. Brother Xuanhuan is really fast, much faster than us. He should be able to entangle the soul-eating ants and provide precious time for Brother Xuemingzi. Tang Ziqian said. Oh, you are so familiar with Brother Xuanhuan. Are you close to him? Chi raised his eyebrows. Does familiarity mean close relationship? Then I am more familiar with Brother Xuemingzi. The two beauties confronted each other and gathered around Xuemingzi. The remaining men could only pretend not to see them. About an hour later, there was no movement of soul-eating ants nearby. Xuemingzi waved his hand and led the excited crowd directly into the abyss nest. They soon lost their movement, and now the road below should be unobstructed. On the other side, Xuanhuan and the others were ready to set off. He is very likely to open the door to the ruins of the god of death, Zhang Zizai said. So, Xuanhuan asked. Are the three of them sure they want to go in with us? The risk is still very high, and there is a great risk of death. The soul-eating ants and the blood god cult are our enemies, Zhang Zizai said. Even the god-killing ruins itself is a great threat, he added. Zhang Zizai, don't forget that we are stronger than you. As for Qingqi, although he lost to you, we can't just leave him here, right? Yun Ziao said softly. It's up to you, I'm just reminding you, because I can have Qingfeng Dragonbird and the Demon Lord Cauldron to help me save my life at a critical moment, Zhang Zizai said. Since we are here together, let's go in together. Xuanhuan knew that they would definitely not want to stay here, after all, they are proud in their bones. The people of the Blood God cult are different from the Blood God camp. They are not desperate people. If we reveal our identities, there should be room for negotiation, Yun Ziao said. I hope so, Zhang Zizai nodded. Make sure you make a move. Xuanhuan gave a warning, and they quietly left here. You know, they have to follow the ancient god, which is very difficult to operate, so they waited for half a quarter of an hour before taking action. Zhang Zizai knew the location of the god-killing ruins, but Xuemingzi and others might not know it. After entering, they sneaked in the dark and approached the god-killing ruins. This abyss nest is now empty. The soul-eating ant is a group source beast, and it has basically left. Zhang Zizai knew the general direction, so when they found the location of the god-killing ruins again, the people of the blood god cult had not found it yet, which made it easier for them to find a suitable place to hide again. At present, it can be seen that the soul-eating ant queen is still in the cave, and there are about 1,000 soul-eating ants around the soul-eating ant queen. When Zhang Zizai and his people had just hidden, the people of the blood god cult came here. When they found the soul-eating ant queen and the thousands of soul-eating ants here, they all left. These soul-eating ants are too greedy. They came out in full force for the blood soul crystal. Now they are far enough away. We have to act quickly, Xuemingzi said. Yes, senior brother. It's up to you to get rid of these soul-eating ants. There are only thousands of them. It's easy for you. Xuemingzi's eyes fell on the still sleeping soul-eating ant queen, and said, this is just the weakest divine beast, and its combat power is not strong. It and all the soul-eating ants together are a whole. Without the protection of the soul-eating ants, it should not be difficult for me to deal with it. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 839. Brother, you are definitely capable of suppressing the soul-eating queen ant. This kind of insect is easy for you. Isn't that nonsense? What kind of person is you? You can become an ancient god at such a young age. Among the ancient gods of our blood god cult, you are definitely in the top 3 in terms of youth. Brother Xuemingzi, you have a bright future. It is not impossible for you to become a god in the future. You can even take over our blood god cult leader. When they flattered him, one was more exaggerated than the other. In the end, Xuemingzi himself felt a little embarrassed and said, don't brag. Hurry up and seize the time. If there is good fortune in the killing god ruins, you all have the possibility of becoming gods. This sentence made everyone's heart burn. They could follow Xuemingzi, which was better than Zhuangzhou, who was the most dangerous and tired outside but could not enter the killing god ruins. Several 9th-level beginners attacked together and appeared in front of the soul-eating ants. They came prepared and directly used various battle tactics and charged with various top-level totem weapons. They were indeed people who were close to becoming gods. Thousands of soul-eating ants were like cutting melons and vegetables to them. When they crushed these soul-eating ants, Xuemingzi had already appeared in the cave and appeared in front of the soul-eating ant queen. The soul-eating ant queen already knew of his existence. Now the soul-eating ant queen seemed to have no eyes, ears, or nose, only a big mouth. It was hard to tell what her emotions were. But from the wriggling of her body surface, she was indeed facing a great burden. The god-killing ruins are really here, because your existence has been abandoned for too long. Xuemingzi's eyes were very hot after seeing the black gate. He locked onto the soul-eating ant queen. The soul-eating ant queen was the core of the soul-eating ant. Once the queen died, the soul-eating ant would fall into chaos and be vulnerable to him. However, before he took action, the soul-eating ant queen took action first. The soul-eating queen ant suddenly opened her mouth and uttered a melodious sound. The sound was transmitted far away, and Zhang Zizai and the others heard it directly. Buzz. At that moment, the brain was shaking, and then there were bursts of stabbing pain. The eyes were blank for a while, as if the world had been turned upside down, and even all kinds of illusions occurred. Zhang Zizai had the Demon Lord Cauldron to resist some, and he felt a little better. He looked back and saw that except for Suyuexi, the other 3 people had ugly faces. Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng supported each other, but Yan Qingqi was not so lucky. Both noses bled. The soul-eating queen ant has eaten too many souls. All its power comes from the soul. If it can't resist, it will actually be very scary. I heard that the soul-eating queen ant is proficient in various means of soul attack. Some can pierce the soul, some can make people hallucinate, and even invade the soul and manipulate the opponent, Suyuexi said. The soul of the ancient god will transform in the process of becoming a god. When a human soul becomes a god soul, it is certainly difficult for the human soul to resist the soul attack of the soul-eating ant queen, but the soul of the god should be much stronger. Therefore, although Xuemingzi is in the center of the vortex, in front of the soul-eating ant queen, he seems to be able to hold on for the time being. However, the other blood god disciples behind him who are dealing with the soul-eating ants are not so strong. They are closer to the soul-eating ants than Zhang Ziyai and others. After being hit, They all screamed, and the battle fell into a state of stagnation, allowing the soul-eating ants to find an opportunity and rush forward. With the help of the soul-eating ant queen, it will take some time for them to get rid of this group of soul-eating ants. After the soul-eating ant queen made the first wave of sound, it was immediately followed by the second and third waves. Sometimes there was no sound at all, but there was a wave of vibrations. This is also its method. The effects of these waves of sound are not very different. Some can cause soul pain, some can cause dizziness, some can make people hallucinate, and some can even manipulate opponents. For example, Tangzikian was invaded just now, and she actually attacked Kikai. Because the incident happened suddenly, Kikai was still in the soul shock of the soul-eating queen ant, and was almost killed by Tangzikian, who suddenly attacked. "You want to kill me? Brother Xuemingzi, Tangzikian almost killed me." It's the method of the soul-eating queen ant. Xuemingzi was being taken care of by the soul-eating queen ant, and he was temporarily unable to split his attention. "What if she is awake?" Kikai said resentfully. "You fart." The two of them actually quarreled at this time, which gave Xuemingzi a headache. He had favored these two beauties, but if they did not become gods, Xuemingzi would not be able to stay with them for a long time. It was just that there was no better choice at present, so he let them follow him. "Stop arguing, get out if you quarrel again," Xuemingzi shouted angrily, and then they shut up completely. He let the soul-devouring ant queen take the initiative from the beginning, and he never had the space to attack. The soul-devouring ant queen's attacks were like a storm, and it was difficult for him to move now. His head was always tingling, and those complicated hallucinations also gave him a headache. But he knew that this would not work. He must suppress the soul-devouring ant queen. When they appeared, the soul-devouring ant queen must be manipulating the soul-devouring ant army to return. Once the soul-devouring ants returned, they had not entered the god-killing ruins, and their end would be miserable. "I know you are powerful, so this time I specially sacrificed this god-level totem weapon to deal with you." Xuemingzi shouted angrily in the midst of the opponent's soul attack, and the next moment, a slender blood sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The blood sword was thin and long, and the color was very bright. As soon as it appeared, it was completely extraordinary. From the dense totem patterns on it, this ferocious and murderous sword, which seemed to make people see a sea of blood, was definitely a god-level totem weapon. After becoming a god, he had the conditions to get a god-level totem weapon, but in fact not every ancient god could get a god-level totem weapon, and some god-level totem weapons were difficult to subdue, a bit like the source of evolution. If there was no fate, it would be useless. Xuemingzi could have a god-level totem weapon, which showed that he did have some status in the blood god cult. Brother Xuemingzi really possesses the blood prison sealing sword. It is said that this was specially given to him by the headmaster. It is rumored that the headmaster intends to accept Brother Xuemingzi as his personal disciple. It is indeed true. The blood prison sealing sword is a very terrifying divine totem weapon. It can kill with blood and is full of murderous energy. As long as the skin is cut, the blood prison sealing sword will enter the body and seal the internal organs with the blood prison, pulling the enemy's body into the blood prison. It is extremely fierce, but this is definitely the style of our blood god section Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 840. Indeed, as they said, as soon as the blood prison sealing sword came out, the ferocious blood energy directly scared all the soul-eating ants to tremble. This must have killed enough divine weapons to have such evil energy. Xuemingzi held the thin and long blood prison sealing sword, and stared at the soul-eating ant queen with a pair of bloody eyes. A sly smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and said, "I know you can understand people's words. You dare to stop me, I will cut you into pieces. Looking at your body, you are so white and fat, I guess the blood and oil are enough to nourish my blood prison sealing sword." With the evil aura of the blood prison sealing sword to resist the soul impact of the soul-eating ant queen, he was indeed feeling better. Now, it should be his turn to explode. With the blood prison sealing sword in hand, Xueming's momentum suddenly increased a lot. In front of him, the white and tender silkworm chrysalis looked vulnerable. Just when Xueming's was about to take action, Zhang Zizai suddenly saw that the body of the soul-devouring ant queen shrank rapidly. Almost in an instant, she transformed from a white silkworm chrysalis into a naked woman. Even though she was a devourer ant, the soul ant queen, but after transforming into a woman, her figure, appearance, and temperament are much more beautiful than Chi-Chi and Tangziqian. They are not on the same level at all. Just like this, Xuemingzi became a little distracted in a short period of time, and the blood prison sealing sword in his hand did not strike. The soul-eating ant queen is good at controlling souls. After eating so many souls, she obviously also has the ability to charm. Her invisible smile can touch the heartstrings of others. Zhang Zizai has seen this before. He knew clearly that this was the queen of soul-eating ants, and he had some physical reactions at that time. Fortunately, Suyuexi next to him was pretty enough. Looking at Suyuexi more often, her youthful, lively and enthusiastic appearance can make people forget about the soul-eating ant queen. However, Xuemingzi and the others were not so easy to forget. However, the soul-eating ant queen should be very afraid of the blood prison sealing sword. She seems to have no fighting ability. She is purely good at soul impact. When it couldn't stop the blood prison sealing sword, she actually escaped. It was very familiar, and once he got into a dodge gap, he seemed to be completely missing. The soul-eating ant queen fled, and the soul-eating ants completely lost their energy, and were quickly killed by the blood god sect. Senior brother Xuemingzi. The soul-eating ant queen actually escaped. Want to catch up? They quickly went around Xuemingzi and asked. Xuemingzi had just chased him out, but he soon realized that it was impossible to catch up, so he turned back. Don't chase, just enter the ruins of the god of death. You get out of the way, and I will use the blood prison sealing sword to open the door to the ruins of the god of death. He made a decisive decision immediately after realizing that he could not catch up with the soul-eating ant queen. Everyone quickly moved out of the way. Xuemingzi moved quickly. He held the blood prison sealing sword in both hands and used the power of the ancient god to strike directly at the door of the killing god ruins. Bite. The door to the ruins of the god of death was not broken, but it was already loose. Continue. Xuemingzi was very confident. After 4 consecutive slashes, the black door was finally blasted open, and a gap was opened. With another strike from Xuemingzi, the door to the ruins of the god of death was directly broken. Get in. Xuemingzi's eyes lit up and he disappeared from Zhang Zizai's sight, and the others quickly followed. Let's go. After they entered, Suyuexi stood up and prepared to follow them. Wait, Zhang Zizai held her shoulders and asked her to calm down first. Sure enough, in the next moment, Xuemingzi walked out again and looked around cautiously. After realizing that no one was following him, he continued in. How do you know he'll come back to see you? Experience, Zhang Zizai said. Suyuexi was thoughtful. She thought maybe this was the reason why Suyanyu asked Zhang Zizai to follow. After coming out to practice, she did find that sometimes what she thought in her heart might be more important than her own strength. After a little observation, Zhang Zizai and the others appeared together and quietly approached the gate of the ruins of the god of death. Standing at the door and looking inside, it was completely empty and I couldn't see much at the moment. Walk. To be honest, it would be very dangerous for them to enter with their strength, but Suyuexi couldn't imagine so much in order to become a god. This is the guidance given to her by the King of Gods, she must do this. A group of 5 people finally arrived at the ruins of the god of death, and they were still a little excited. After entering, there is a long passage in front of me. I walked in the center of the passage. Soon I heard someone talking in front of me. After I got close to my heart, I discovered that there was a huge underground space behind the passage. In this underground space, there was an underground palace. The style of the underground palace is very simple. It is covered with dust. It should have a very ancient consciousness. The front door of the underground palace has been opened, and the people from the Blood God sect have obviously entered the front hall. This underground palace should be all the ruins of the God of Death. It doesn't look very big, but for some reason, it always has a heart-stopping aura, maybe because it was too long ago. Mysterious, ancient and dead. Only the sound of their blood god's teachings came from the front hall of the underground palace. They were in a relatively excited state in the front hall and should be less alert to the outside. There were many holes in the windows of the front hall. Zhang Zizai wrapped himself with the demon lord cauldron and told them not to make any sound. He went there by himself. Take a look over there to see what they are doing inside. After approaching, I found that the front hall was very dark and empty. The people of the Blood God cult gathered together. Their attention seemed to be on the edge of the front hall. Zhang Zizai squinted his eyes and found that there were dozens of statues placed on the edge of the front hall. The statues seemed to be made of black rocks. The shadow was a tall and thin man wearing armor. His whole body was covered in heavy armor, and his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose could not be seen clearly. Each black statue was exactly the same. Is this statue the one called the God of Killing? Who is this God of Killing? I don't know, it should be an ancient god from a long time ago. Dare to call it this name, meaning that you have killed a lot of people? I don't think it may be as many as our headmaster. You think too much, this is just an ordinary ancient god, how can it be compared with our headmaster? Their excited words. Don't make noise. Xuemingzi was observing these statues and asked them to shut up. These swords are not part of the statues, they are weapons. Suddenly, Xuemingzi was very surprised. Zhang Zizai also saw that each of the statues held a sword, pointing to the sky. The sword was pitch black and covered with dust, so it was hard to see its specific appearance, but it looked very familiar, which made Zhang Zizai a little confused. Yes, at least they are all top-level dry-level totem weapons, Xuemingzi said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 841. He looked around for a week and said, there are 30 weapons in total. Please put them away. I dare you that many of your weapons may not be as good as this. These weapons have been submerged for so many years. It is time for them to be born. Okay. A group of them became excited and walked to the edge of the statue one after another, trying to pull the black swords out of the hands of the statue. However, they soon found that it was very difficult. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Rightward arrow. Destroy the statue, Tang Ziqian said softly. She was holding the black sword and wanted to pull it out. At this moment, the statue in front of her suddenly opened its eyes. The statue was clearly made of rock, but at this moment, a pair of real eyes appeared, with endless anger. Ah! Tang Ziqian screamed in fright and quickly rolled to the ground, rolling several times. Only then did she resolve the crisis without letting the suddenly moving statue stop her from cutting her off. It's not just her, there are people in other places who are scared to death. Quickly retreat. When Xuemingzi shouted, everyone trembled and backed away. Only then did they see that these 30 statues were completely awake. They were all clearly rocks, but they all had beautiful eyes, and their eyes could even express many emotions. There are many totem patterns on its body, and it is obvious that this is not just an ordinary statue, but a puppet made with totem patterns, which is similar to the way of the totem talisman master. This is definitely a statue puppet made by the ancient god, so it is extraordinary. Now they are all awakened, each holding a magic weapon, looking at the group of intruders with disgust. What kind of rat dares to break into the mansion of the god of killing? Retreat quickly, otherwise you will die without a complete body. All the idol puppets shouted together. Their voices are exactly the same. Before Xuemingzi could say anything, the statues and puppets continued, "Who dares to break into the killing god's mansion? Retreat quickly, otherwise you will die without a complete body. These are dead objects. I don't know how many years they have been. They are probably almost broken. Just get rid of them," Xuemingzi said. Others also reacted at this time, and they gathered together. When they did not retreat, the idol puppet directly attacked them. Kill. Including Xuemingzi, the 7 of them instantly fought with 30 statues and puppets. The statues and puppets themselves should be of a very high level, but because they were in disrepair, their movements were a bit mechanical. But if you look at it for this reason, it would probably be, pay the price with your life. Zhang Zizai took a few glances and realized that without Su Mingzi, those few people would definitely not be able to defeat these idol puppets. After all, there were many idol puppets, but after Xuemingzi held the blood prison sealing sword, its lethality was very strong. Able to kill an idol puppet in half. Senior brother is still awesome. Senior brother's cultivation talent is truly a role model for our generation. After the idol puppet was cut in half, they began to collect the black sword left behind by the idol puppet. After letting them blow off the dust on the sword, Zhang Zizai's eyes widened and he was stunned for a moment. Because he found that these long swords were very similar to the god-killing, and god-killing swords that the killing god Xianbing used before, and they almost didn't look much different. When the 3 were fused, the name appeared on the weapon, called 33 Killing God Mysterious Weapon. Now, there are a total of 30 black long swords here, and the killing god mysterious weapon in his hand is made up of 3 weapons. If added up, it is 33. Is this really a series of things? Is it possible that the 33 swords will eventually merge together and become the real 33 killing gods? He thought it was possible. There is not much suspense in the following battle. As an ancient god, Xuemingzi is still very powerful. The number of those god statues and puppets is getting smaller and smaller. His junior brothers and sisters are picking up weapons behind him, even talking to each other. They were still snatching, and Zhang Zizai remembered clearly how many black swords everyone took away in the end. I'm going to get all these rare swords. It's going to be too difficult to grab them all. It would be fine if only one person took it, but with so many people trying to grab them all, it would be a huge headache. Of course, each of these people are better than me, just think about it. At this time, they had collected all the long swords, and there seemed to be nothing in the front hall that could arouse their interest, so they packed up and started to go to the middle hall. After they all left, Zhang Zizai quickly told them what happened in the front hall. The other party had already gone to the middle hall, and they should be able to follow them. If this continues, we will all be able to eat the leftovers behind others, and we are destined to gain nothing at all, Yan Qingqi said. How about you go up and compete with him, Zhang Zizai said. This guy is too young and doesn't consider practical issues at all. Don't make any noise and follow me quickly. Suyuexi hissed and started to enter the front hall. Zhang Zizai walked side by side with her. Yun Ziao and Ning Mufeng also followed. The 4 of them entered the front hall. After checking, they found that except for those long swords, there was indeed nothing here. There is nothing else. Go to the middle hall. Suyuexi made a decisive decision. Wait a minute. Zhang Zizai looked around and said, where is Yan Qingqi? The 3 of them were startled. When they looked around, they found that Yan Qingqi was not there. It seems like he was behind us just now. Is he angry outside? Yun Ziao said. This guy, Suyuexi was a little angry and rushed out directly, but her expression soon became solemn because there was no one outside. He was angry, so he left? If he went out directly, what if he met the soul-eating queen ant? Yun Xiao asked. Let's go. Suyuexi still cared about him. At this time, she gave up going forward and left the front hall and returned to the passage outside. The four of them quickly wanted to find Yan Qingqi back. Alas, Qingqi is still too childish, Yun Xiao said depressedly. I'll teach him a lesson when I get back. Suyuexi gritted her teeth and said, being willful at this time, she really had no sense of propriety. Just then, they returned to the entrance, but suddenly found that this place seemed very dark. The door is closed. Zhang Zizai was shocked to find that he clearly saw that this door was split open by Xue Mingzi using the blood prison sealing sword and was completely damaged, but at this time, the inside was completely closed, and the door seemed to have never been damaged at all. How is it possible? Suyuexi was also incredible. This means that Yan Qingqi is unlikely to get out of here. This is strange. This god-killing ruins is gloomy and ancient. When Zhang Ziyai looked back at this underground palace again, he found that there was a strange atmosphere here. For a moment, it was creepy. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 842. The door to go out has been completely sealed, especially from the inside. Even if you want to break through the door and go out, there will definitely be a huge noise, which will naturally attract the attention of Xue Mingzi and the others. Yan Qingqi doesn't have the ability to break through this place. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. This shows that he should still be within the ruins of the God of Death. He won't catch up with Xue Mingzi and the others first, right? Yun Xiao shrank and asked with a worried look on her face. Being missing suddenly is scarier than anything else, because who knows whether he will be the next person to disappear. Impossible. Suyuexi knew very well that Yan Qingqi did not move forward, and in the impression, he did not enter the front hall. Go back and have a look. It was impossible for them to escape at this time, so they immediately turned back to see if Yan Qingqi was naughty and hiding in some corner. However, when they returned to the front hall, they saw no trace of Yan Qingqi at all. Except for the middle hall, he was nowhere to be seen. This is strange. Zhang Zizi used the Divine Breath Talisman, and the only life presence he could feel was Xue Mingzi and the others who were still in the middle hall. The vibration of the Divine Breath Talisman showed that they might be able to accept the presence of the Divine Breath Talisman in the middle hall. A new test should be in the battle. Go over and have a look. Yan Qingqi's incident made people panic, but after all, they had no choice but to bite the bullet and keep walking back. Maybe Qingqi is the one they are fighting now. Yun Xiao. But Zhang Zizi felt that it was impossible, because the fighting there had been going on for a while. If it were Yan Qingqi, it would have been impossible for him to persist for such a long time. They quietly passed through the front hall and came to the outside of the middle hall. The sound of fighting inside was very obvious. They looked inside from the window outside the door. The scene inside made Zhang Zizai confused and shocked. At the first moment, what he saw was that the disciples of the Blood God sect were killing each other. They were caught in a melee. Everyone looked very confused. There was no resentment towards Peters on their expressions, but they seemed to be unable to control their bodies. The only person who did not participate in the battle was Xue Mingzi. He was independent and fighting in a dark corner. If someone attacked him, he would just avoid it. You all try to hold on. As long as I deal with this ghost, I will help you deal with it right away, Xue Mingzi said loudly. Brother, hurry up. I can't hold it anymore. Brother, help. The people who spoke looked very miserable. But why are they like this? When Zhang Zizai took a closer look, he saw the answer. This is definitely a shocking answer. That is, there is another head growing on each of their shoulders. Some grow on the left and some grow on the right. The skin of this head was jet black, so Zhang Ziyai didn't notice it at first. But now that he noticed it, he found that it was a real human head, with eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, but a dull expression, and occasionally smiled slyly, but made no sound. It can be so weird for a person to have two heads, and it is obvious that the current melee is not the intention of the blood god cult disciples themselves. They cannot control the chaos of their hands and feet, which is obviously related to the newly grown heads. Relation. There is even a head on Xuanhuan's shoulder. He is probably trying his best to control it. It can be seen that he will chop off the newly grown head with a sword, but the problem is, he has no way to do it. Except for this matter, what was once a piece of cake was now horribly difficult, almost as if he didn't want to commit suicide. What's going on? Zhang Zizai was a little confused. They were originally a group of 8 people. Except for Zhuangzhou who didn't come in, the other 7 were here. Now all 7 of them have 2 heads and started killing each other. So the strange scene, and the thought of the inexplicably closed door always makes people's hair stand on end. I've heard of this thing before. Suyuxi's voice was trembling as she said, this should be a kind of spirit. Monsters are weird things born directly from the earth. There is no logic at all. Some are so weak that they will die at the touch of a touch. Some of them are comparable to mythical beasts, or even weirder and more difficult to deal with. If my guess is correct, this should be a kind of spirit called nine-headed monster. It once appeared in a very ancient time. I didn't expect it to kill people here. It can appear in the ruins of God. The ruins of the god of death are so old. How can the spirit survive to this day? Zhang Zizai thought of the water monsters from the Purple Chen realm in the Origin continent. It was indeed strange. It's possible, because they have some sleeping skills. This nine-headed monster should have been dormant for countless years, Suyuxi said. What exactly is the nine-headed monster? A kind of strange spirit, with 9 heads all over the body, like grapes, very disgusting. They have a special ability, which is to separate the 9 heads to parasitize others, and influence the host by the mind. Uses various means to make the host chop off its own head, and then it and the host's body become a new person, but it only drains the body completely before it changes its target. When Suyuxi got up, she felt horrified. Now the people of the Blood God sect have been controlled. Once they chop off their heads, or let others chop them off, they will die, and their bodies will be parasitized by the nine-headed monster. In the end it was equivalent to being shattered to pieces. There is such a wonderful thing down there. Zhang Zizai was simply amazed. You are not knowledgeable enough. There are many more mysterious things. It's just that you are ignorant, Suyuxi said. It's fun to ridicule me at this time. Let's think about what to do, Zhang Zizai said. 9-headed monsters, there are 7 of them in total. Do you think there are 2 more heads? Yun Ziao said suddenly. Yes, Zhang Zizai's hair stood on end, he felt the danger. At this moment, he suddenly felt a cold sensation on the back of his head. When he suddenly turned around, he saw 2 black faces hanging in the air, looking at them with a sly smile. In the next moment, the 2 heads collided. One chose Zhang Zizai, and the other chose Yun Ziao. It was really scary to approach so silently. Zhang Ziao's only reaction at this moment was to quickly activate the Demon Lord's Cauldron. The Demon Lord's Cauldron appeared instantly. Just when the black head was about to hit him, it was knocked out by the Demon Lord's Cauldron.